Hey guys, Worggy here, and today we got the opportunity to actually play on the PTB with a bunch of friends. We did custom matches. The reason most of the time I don't do PTB is because the wait time is just too damn long. And I found a group of friends to play with, so we got to experience the Xenomorph. And I have to say, guys, this killer is one of the best killers that's come out in quite some time, and at least for me, and no one against anyone that plays these killers, but uh, I really haven't uh, liked a killer since Dredge, and I would use that term very lightly with Dredge even. I have to really think on which killer I liked the best. And Xenomorph just seems really good right out of the box. Alright, let's get right into it, guys. First off, we're going to cover his perks. His first one that we're going to cover will be Rapid Brutality. Now, one of the key things with this one is that you do not gain Bloodlust, which could be really massive disadvantage to some killers. But on a basic attack, you gain 5% haste, and it lasts for 10 seconds once the perk is maxed out. So for certain killers, this could really be powerful. I actually want to see what this is like with Scratchmere Myers. With the additional speed boost, that could actually make Scratchmere Myers even more powerful. And it's kind of a meme build, but I really enjoy it. And a lot of killers that don't really utilize Bloodlust or need it, they could gain a really big benefit from this. Alright, next up, we're going to cover Killer. I said Killer Instinct. It's Alien Instinct. And basically, the aura of the furthest injured survivor is revealed to you for 5 seconds. And the survivor also suffers from Oblivious for once it's maxed out up to 20 seconds. Again, this particular perk, like I could see some uses out of it. But with a lot of the groups nowadays, being so big with healing, it's really going to be a toss-up if this is going to be a powerful perk or not. But it could be utilizing certain builds, but it's nothing that knocks my boots off or anything like that. Alright, and the last perk for the new killer will be Ultimate Weapon. Whenever you open a locker, Ultimate Weapon activates for 30 seconds. Survivors entering your terror radius scream and reveal their location to you. Those survivors suffer from blindness status effects for 30 seconds. Again, there's a couple perks that utilize the lockers. I've never been a big fan of any of them, so I really doubt I use this perk. But who knows what the future holds, but it doesn't seem too incredibly strong. I think there's better options out there that do similar things. Alright, and that's pretty much it on the perks, guys. Again, some of them don't seem too awful bad. I don't think the perks for the killer are necessarily like just nothing insane. The killer itself, the killer is just fun. I think once, like a lot of people have been saying that they felt like the killer was OP, stuff like that. I do not feel like the killer is OP. I feel like actually this killer, I don't think it's going to be on the lower end of things. I think it would probably be mid-tier to low A tier maybe. I think once survivors figure out how to use the turrets properly, it'll be a little better. I do also think that there needs to, like, honestly, you can just run through the turrets and never pay any attention to them and be just fine. You'll see in my matches that I played with these guys that oftentimes I'll just run through the turret and just completely ignore it altogether. I think it needs to be more impactful. I think there needs to be consequences for the killer not dealing with the turrets. And another thing I do feel about is, like, when I pick up a survivor, if I run into a turret, I think it should make me drop them. But as someone else, that I was speaking to in Discord mentioned, none of the other killers has that kind of. It might be too big of a disadvantage to them. Who knows? But I do think there needs to be. I mean, the killer can just ignore the turrets altogether. And sure, if you're playing against a group of really good survivors, that's probably going to kind of screw your whole matchup. But generally speaking, if you're just playing a bunch of randoms, you'll probably be just fine just ignoring the turrets altogether. Its anti-loop is pretty damn powerful. But again, I think once survivors just learn how to deal with this killer, I don't think he's gonna be anything insane. But the killer is fun. I look at it as being like a cross between like Demogorgon and Nemesis. It's like a nice happy medium between those, and it does so many things so much better. For example, with Demogorgon, when you drop his teleport down, once you select the location you want to go to, you're locked in. There's no switching. With Xenomorph, once you go down to your tunnels, if you're like, maybe you notice something, you need to go to a different location, you can easily just turn around and go to that location. You can also see footsteps from beneath when you're down in the tunnels. You can see their footsteps. These are just big advantages that Demogorgon doesn't have. Teleports have, you can remove them. You can't remove these. And you can also see player locations off their footprints. So there's a lot of advantages. I mean, it's basically like Demogorgon on steroids. It's just a better version of him in every way. His anti-loop's better. He can hit over the pallets. He can hit over the windows. Some may argue that that's a little too powerful. But again, I feel like once survivors figure out how to actually play against the Xenomorph, I don't think he's going to be as powerful as people are thinking. Because the one thing that makes him powerful is his tail. Without his tail, he's just an M1 killer. And with the turrets, you can, if you put him in smart locations, you can remove his power altogether, and that pretty much neuters his killer. So, and as far as his tail ability, I do feel like the tail is going to be an extremely strong anti-loop. Maybe even one of the stronger ones in the game. The range on it's pretty far, but I don't feel like it's any further, honestly, than Nemesis Tentacle. But I do feel like, and I'm definitely not a pro Nemesis player here, but I do feel like one, it's easier to hit than the Nemesis Tentacle, and two, you have to get three strikes, I believe, or something like that, in order to get it down with Nemesis. Again, I don't play Nemesis very much, very little, but it's a stronger ability and easier to hit. At least that's coming from someone that's inexperienced with Nemesis. You can hit over the windows, over the pallets. You can even hit over like when they're in between the obstacles. A lot of times you can hit over that stuff and still nail them. The hitbox does seem a little weird. There's times where I felt like I should have gotten a hit and didn't, and then there's times where I thought I shouldn't have gotten the hit and did. So I'm still trying to figure out exactly how the hitbox on this thing works. It seems a little wonky at times. It's definitely not hard to hit. It just seems weird sometimes. Sometimes I get the hit, like I said, and I don't feel like I should have, and vice versa. But it's going to be an extremely powerful ability, and especially if survivors do not deal with said ability, it's going to definitely be super punishing to the groups. Because he can move around the map so fast. He has a pretty long anti-loop. Like, if survivors don't deal with the turrets, I feel like this killer will just eat them alive. And especially once killers start developing better and better builds for them, it'll be more and more difficult. So, but as with most killers, it's going to take survivors a little. It's like I always said, it's easier for the killers to learn how to play the killer than it is for the survivors to learn how to counter that killer. And just with like most killers, survivors will initially think that the killer's broken and OP. They'll take to the forums voicing that. But I feel like this killer is actually pretty well balanced. I have found a few bugs. Well, I say a few. I found one bug, and it doesn't seem like play with your food loses its stacks by using your M2 ability. I'm assuming that's a bug. When you use your special ability, you're supposed to lose a stack, according to the perk anyway. And if that isn't addressed, play with your food could be a actual serious problem. I actually tested it on this guy's, but I did not abuse it. Once I figured out that it wasn't working as intended, I went ahead and lost my stacks intentionally because of 15% speed. Like, this is just a PTB. We weren't playing serious. We were just wanting to see the new content. Alright, and now as far as the map is concerned, I actually really like this map, and I'm not one that normally likes maps particularly. Like, most of the time I'm not like against them, but oftentimes I do feel like a lot of the maps are sometimes survivor sided, especially here recently. Like the newer map, I don't know what the damn thing's called, the one with the singularity. That map is so damn cluttered that it's a big disadvantage to most killers, to be perfectly honest. Garden of Joy, super survivor sided. This particular map, I think it could go two ways here. Like, I do feel like there are some pretty small loops. There's some good loops too, but overall they're not too bad. Um, and I think killers will easily be able to mind game most of these loops. And so I think this is going to be a pretty balanced map. Because there are some also decent loops where you can actually loop the killer, but there's also a lot of those kind of loops where if you're at it, you're just pretty much guaranteeing the killer a hit. Which that's perfectly fine for those type of loops to exist. They should exist. The survivor should have to make a decision. Just because you see a pallet there, that doesn't mean it's a safe pallet. And so I think this map is actually really well done. I absolutely. I actually took a break over Garden of Joy when they increased the spawn rate at Garden of Joy because I hate that map so much. I despise that fucking map. It's so survivor sided. That house is so broken. But let's get back on topic. I think both survivors and killers are going to enjoy this map. I think it just looks great. I think there's plenty of advantages and disadvantages for both sides. Like I said, a lot of the loops are small, so killers will be able to easily get some hits. There's also some really strong loops, so survivors can do their looping. I don't. It's pretty open. It's not too cluttered. Not like the last map, like I said. So I think this is a really good map. So I'm really happy about it. Now this part I'm not gonna really be able to share a whole lot of information on. But as far as the survivor, I think it looks pretty generic, to be perfectly honest. It doesn't really impress me on the way she looks. And I know a lot of people have shown have been unhappy because it doesn't look like the counterpart to the movie, which I think that's perfectly fine as well. I mean, there could be some licensing issues and stuff like that on why they weren't able to use the likeness of I think it's Sigourney Weaver that acts in this movie. I've never actually seen the movie, to be honest, so I think it's Sigourney Weaver. I might have a different movie confused, but again, I think that's fine. But again, I do think the Survivor looks very generic, and I don't know a whole lot about perks, but they do have one where you'll be able to place a trap on the pallets. I could see that actually being powerful. I could see a lot of like Swift groups making some kind of meme builds just to screw with the killers. And every time they're breaking a pallet, they're going to get. I think it slows them down by a pretty substantial margin for like 4 seconds. That's the only perk that I saw that I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. But I'm not a survivor man. I'm not going to attempt. If I tried to explain anything about the survivor, I wouldn't be able to. I don't know nothing about survivor. Last Saturday was the first time I played survivor in 2 years. I really just don't cover survivor stuff, but the survivor looks okay. I think it looks generic, like I said. But other than that, the Mori on this guy that you guys are seeing right now is, I think it looks badass. I'm not gonna say it's the best Mori in the game or anything like that, but I think it looks cool. Like it's not a really generic Mori like you see a lot of times with like Skull Merchant. That one basically looks just like Nightmares Mori, but slightly different, very slightly different. This one actually is different, and so I like that. I like the Mori. There's really not a whole lot I don't like about this killer. I'm actually considering maining this killer because I absolutely loved Demogorgon before they broke the license, and so I feel like I might actually main this killer once again, or this killer once again, like it's a Demogorgon. I think I'm going to main this killer because it's a light Demogorgon. Now it's obviously different, but its powers honestly work a lot the same, but most of his powers are more powerful than what Demogorgon was. So, like his shred with the long range that it has, you have that with the tail, but now you can hit over pallets, you can hit over windows. His where he goes down in the tunnel, you move at ridiculous speeds, and you have full control on where you're going. If you need to turn around and go to a different location, you have that option. And so I don't really feel like there's a whole lot of cons to this. I mean, we're going to have to deal with the turrets, obviously, but I think this is going to be a really powerful killer once everything's said and done. And also, guys, I want to give a shout out to the group that I was playing with: Cold Contagious, Seven Ender, Wall Fry, and Era. Super great group of people, guys. Two of them do stream. Make sure to drop Cold Contagious and Seven Ender a follow. And like I said, these are just the nicest people to ever play with. Uh, I'm so happy that they invited me along. It was just a really great group. There was no, salt, nothing like that. We were just playing. It wasn't a competitive thing, and it was just an absolute blast to play with them. And again, thank you for inviting me, and hopefully you'll have me again.